Welcome to Pros from the Underground, coming to you from my basement in northern Michigan, where I still read, write, think, and say things. I'm John Mauk, if you don't know me. This is episode number 19 already, and I've been grateful for comrades, writers, thinkers, students, and strangers who've come around to get small bits of advice from these episodes, and most importantly, to hear interviews. So today, I'm talking with an old friend, Katey Schultz. I first started talking with Katey years ago when her book Flashes of War was coming onto the scene. That book garnered plenty of awards, got plenty of attention, as it should have. She went on to write a novel called Still Come Home, also set in war context. Now she's working on a novel project. As I understand it, it emerges from a story called Wait for Me that was published in the Mighty Missouri Review. I read that story recently. Of course, I believe it does everything right and does plenty that is beyond right. So I asked Katey to come on and talk about that work in progress and especially the movement from flash work to long form prose. So she has plenty of advice to offer. Before I say more, let's give it right to her. Here's Katey Schultz. You talked about the difference, the overlaps or divergences between working hard on flash, distilling plot in flash versus sustaining scene in long form prose. Say stuff to us about that.
Stuff. Let's see what I can come up with. Yeah, I mean, my first love is flash form, flash nonfiction or flash fiction. And I did write traditional flash in the sense that much of it was very scene based. Many of my flashes are like one scene. There, you can do all kinds of cartwheels with flash. But I think it's worth saying my home base was like the tight, knock your socks off scene with some diversions here. There were little jabs of backstory. And I say that because I know that people who work with you, John, or who watch these interviews are also writing long form. And so flash can be like a gateway drug into long form if you're scared of it, or it can be like a way to sort of like ease off the gas pedal if you think long form is all you can ever do, and just sort of dose yourself by saying, I'm just going to practice scene. Oh, I'm just practicing scene. So, all that aside, like in flash, much like poetry, every word really does have to count. Whereas the longer you go, the more breathing room you have. So like Charles Baxter says that flash, the novel can win you by points, but flash fiction has to win you by knockout. Mm-hmm. So the novel is the prolonged exhale. It is the prolonged moral decision. Whereas flash, there's so much more left unsaid. And so how do we do that? Well, subtext, one of your favorite topics, is a huge one. And I tried to come at subtext through the angle of verbs, actually. And so in particular in flash, every verb has got to count.
Yeah.
Whereas in a longer form novel, like you actually don't want to make every verb count. It will exhaust your reader. It's like trying to sprint a marathon. An early draft of my novel that I gave to a fellow novelist to read, she said, oh, blah, 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 it's fine, but do you ever use the word that?
Nice.
Actually, no. So I had to go back in and put words in to my novel because I was not yet in the writer who could trust space.
Oh, right.
In that way, and trust the reader, that the reader might want, to a certain extent, a playground, like a little breathing room in a playground.
Smart.
Concretely, verbs are your best friend always, but especially like you just cannot break up with them. They're like BFF forever in flash. And also in flash, you need to be raising questions and having balls in the air. That's how plot works. But too many, and the flash won't land. The reader doesn't know where to focus. Whereas the novel definitely more than one ball in the air.
Yeah,
Right.
good. I really I want to underscore this point and wave a flag about it, because I certainly feel the tension that you're talking about at every moment. And I think maybe it comes from just writing more, or perhaps some just degree of success, the allowance, the license a writer gives to let the reader have a playground, as you say. And I'm just really grateful that you said that. I feel sometimes like I wonder if the reader will want to read the next sentence. And if we can allow ourselves to say, heck yeah, that can allow the syntax, the prose itself to relax. And that's probably really important, especially for long form prose. That's huge. I think you're the first person I've heard, or maybe the first person I am acknowledging as saying that you had to go back in and add some language to make it calm down. Which I think is, and I'll have to think about a title. Maybe someone can shout this out, of a novel. And I know I've read some where I'm just exhausted after the first chapter, and perhaps you've put your finger on why.
Yeah, it can be too much, too breathy, too overdone, too, one sad sort of impact, or could be that the writing starts to call attention to itself.
Yep.
You go on like that too long, which is not what we're in it for.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So if you would, and maybe we're already doing this right now, but so you've had what you're calling the first chapter of the novel that you're currently working on published. That's Wait for Me, and it's really, really lovely work. It feels calm and it knows itself. And so here you are marching onward beyond that chapter. What's working? What's keeping you awake at night? How's that going?
Yeah, thank you for that. It's going very, very slowly. I began, so like a child and a pandemic and major chronic illness have happened since this began. So my sense of patience with myself, my sense of expectations on a personal level has completely shifted, and I've really calmed down around it. So that's actually nice, as hard as, the pandemic and other factors have been to endure. It's actually nice to say, no, like, I still completely believe in that kernel.
Mhm.
I have absolutely no fear that I will not resolve it. I don't know how I will resolve it, but I know I will. This is hard to say, but so when Still Come Home came out, I'm so grateful for the people who have enjoyed that book, and for my publisher, and for the awards that it's gotten. And I can say that, and I can also say that there are things I see in it that come up short, and that I am like okay with that. All that means for me as a writer is that this book I'm working on now, Wait for Me, is the book that's going to help me become the next writer I need to be.
Mhm.
And one thing that I could sort of pull back on and reflect on with Still Come Home was just the tight chronological container. I put the novel, it all happens in order over the course of 3 days. And that was fine. That's how that story needed to arrive. But boy, was that hard. I mean, it was a gift because I knew where I was going, but there were some times when the container was so damn tight, that there were too many possibilities, imaginative possibilities I cut myself off from. So I said, okay, one rule with this, Wait for Me, I am writing out of order.
Good.
So, how that's going for me, like lots and lots of free writing. I always begin a long form project by hand, always by hand. but lots of like free writing and really honoring that playground that I had mentioned. So, or you could say another analogy might be like swimming in the ocean of this novel. And I am not, I have not hit the edge of the wall. If you think of the Truman Show, like I haven't sailed
Yeah.
my boat to the edge of the wall yet.
Yeah.
So I'm free writing into that by hand, and things are emerging. Things will repeat or pester me in the night or in my mind's eye. And they have a synergy around them, a sense of momentum. And in some way, that's where plot is coming from. I know it's very like out there. But the plot is not coming from the container of like this single mission of a platoon over the course of day 1, day 2, day 3. It's really coming differently. And so for lack of a better word, I might say it's coming like thematically,
Interesting.
or I could say, and you can stop me at any time, but uh, like one example might be that I had done, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 free writes by hand. And some of them were like 1 page and some were maybe 3 pages by hand. And then I typed them all up, which is one of my favorite things to do, because new sentences like dance
Hmm.
come in. And then at the end, like one of the things that I realized was like I kept referencing like that night at the state fair. And I was like, what the hell happened at the state fair? Like, and I'm looking through all my pages and free writes, like I have not written a single scene at the state fair. And so that was just like a huge invitation of a question to live with, like what happened at the state fair, like
Hmm.
what, like every character keeps mentioning that night at the state fair. So that's like fun. That's
Yeah.
the meat of
Uh, a sub question, and I have a reason for asking this. The story, Wait for Me, is first person. Is the novel?
so right now what I am calling part 1
Mhm.
is in first person from the
Okay.
point of view of Sarvis, who you meet in Wait for Me, and that is the beginning of the novel. Part 2 is right now in first person from Judy Puckett's point of view, much
Ah,
older, when she's
all right.
older. Yeah, you meet Judy when she's older.
Mhm.
And um, but I have experimented with doing that in third person some.
Okay.
But right now, first, like she's got a voice. It's pretty loud in me.
Mhm.
And I'm really going towards that.
Yeah, nice. I like the freedom that you're again voicing for writers. Just not long ago, I talked with Teresa Scollin, who called chronology a tyrant, and she's also working on a long memoir, and found that the automatic service that we offer, the obedience to chronology that Kronos himself and our culture gives us, can be a real detriment. It can really oppress lots of other impulses. Can you say, before we talk about one last question, what at this point, if you are open to point of view changes, in different parts, is there something you can say about a decision making process that says something like, yes, definitely Sarvis has to be first person, and maybe Judy can be or should be third person? Is there something that's in your mind, thinking there's some value in keeping Judy third, perhaps, or making her third? It's what Lee K. Abbott said, that point of view is the thing that keeps you awake at night. There are other things you can fix on the page, but point of view, it just will bedevil you through the evening and into your nightmares. Any thoughts you can offer on that?
Yeah, I think if I can't pull off the exterior plot that I'm envisioning
Mm-hmm.
in a satisfying, persuasive way through first person, then that would be the reason to go to third. But I'm the kind of person who I'm not going to want to give up on that. I'm going to want to solve it in first if I feel that Judy's voice is really the voice that needs to lead the way. So really where I run into point of view, like line in the sand, got to make this decision. For me, it comes back to plot. Who knows what and when and what you can and can't do depending on the point of view you've selected.
Yeah. I think that's totally sound and also terrifying, because it shows how interlocked these things are. In fact, I think it was Mary Kay Zaravalov who just insisted that when you get the right point of view, the story itself becomes transparent. You know you've landed in the right space.
Yeah. And I resisted. There was well over a year where I was resisting even some of Judy's like voice sentences because of, I think, rules that I had made for myself that I didn't even know I had made.
Oh, nice.
Years that were not worth holding on to. And finally, push comes to shove, and it's like, come on, Schultz, like it's been a year and those sentences are still there. Like you got to do it. Like that is how she wants to be on this page, and you've got to go there.
Good.
So that those kinds of moments, we do, it's helpful, even though they're slow in coming, because then the decision has been made and onward we go.
Brave and helpful, and also terrifying. The point of view, I always think of it as a vehicle, and you got to get in that vehicle and drive it hard for a while before you know if it works. And it can take a year, if it's a big project, and then you look back and think, oh man, it's the wrong vehicle, or it's just not right enough, and so you go back and do it again. And that's part of the art. It is the art. What are you reading right now?
Yeah. So much. Well, I'm reading Neil deGrasse Tyson's Astrophysics for Beginners, I think. Just sort of briefly. Then I have I'm looking over longingly at my to-read pile. This is on my bedside. It's called Day Tripper by Fabio Moon and Gabrielle Ba. It's a graphic novel.
Oh, nice.
Which is really, I think it's the first one I've ever bought. Every chapter is a different way that this guy dies.
Same
my
guy?
bedside. Yeah, same guy over and over.
Nice.
And then a lot of Karen Russell, Lauren Groff, Amina Gautier. 8-9 books at one time, sort of slowly picking through them.
Oh, okay. Wow. So you're one of those readers.
I'm one of those. It's changed since having a child. I became one of those. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm two max, usually a nonfiction and a fiction. So good. We've got all those authors lined up. Neil deGrasse Tyson for nonfiction, and Michael Stipe watching over you, keeping you company. Katey Schultz, thanks for being here. Come back whenever you like, even if there's something in between now and the fruition of that book and you want to come back and talk to us. Good luck. I'll see you when the sun shines, I suspect.
I think so. Out of the basements we go.
That's right.